Hi, James. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me to your podcast.
Yeah, no worries. So, before we start, I usually like to ask all of my guests to present themselves. So, tell me a little bit about yourself and who you are from a professional point of view.
Well, I am a professor, a retired dean. I spent 25 years in the United Arab Emirates teaching at Zayed University in the College of Communication and Media Sciences, where I became the dean of that college. In the course of 25 years, I was very, very fortunate to be able to develop other side things. For 12 years, I was the host of a radio talk show in the evenings, a call-in show called Nightline. I was involved with TEDx. I brought the first TEDx to Dubai in 2009 with Giorgio Ngania, and went on to do creative mornings work. We did 77 creative mornings meetups on zero budget. It was a lot of fun. And then 288 days ago, we decided to move back to Canada. It was time after 25 years to come home, and here I am.
Yeah, did you enjoy your life in Dubai? It must have been nice.
It's very different than living here. Being an expat is a very different thing. So, yeah, you know what? There's a lot to like about living in the Middle East, and there are things that get under your skin after a while. So, yeah. Right,
gotcha. Well, today we'll be talking a little bit about basically the power of storytelling across cultures and what you have learned in the 25 years of your life. So I want to start with the first question, which is, what makes storytelling powerful across cultures?
You know what I learned is that storytelling and telling stories is the ultimate connector. Mm-hmm. And there was a saying that we used to have on t-shirts, and maybe we get that saying here as well. Same, but different. And what I learned from storytelling and being around people and being an expat is every interaction, for the most part, for the first time, started in, so why are you here? And you were really provoked to tell your story. And what I learned was that we all have similar stories, and we all, when you tear through all of these things that are our careers and our backgrounds and different countries we come from, we're really striving for the same things, and we're going through the same things, and we're doing the same things. So the storytelling is this ultimate connector, and I think that was really, really powerful, and is something that I hold near and dear now as I've come back to Canada.
Yes, and stories are always so much fun to listen to, I would say, no? That's what they teach us at Toastmasters, is all about storytelling. You want to connect with people, then you start with a story, incorporate story in your speech. So yeah, definitely agree with everything you said. So my other question is, if there are any universal elements that make a story resonate everywhere?
When you are telling a story, and as soon as you personalize it, that to me becomes the universal element. And why I say that is because everybody is nosy, and we all want to know about other people, and you just have to share the smallest little thing about, why did you choose to have coffee without sugar and milk versus having it with sugar and milk? Inconsequential, but as soon as you personalize the things you're talking about and bring that personal element to it, people, they sit up a little bit. They stop. It's like, oh, hold on. This person's not just giving me the spiel. They're actually talking and connecting themselves to what we're talking about. They're connecting to me. They're getting personal. They're giving me a little bit of them. And I think that becomes really important. Personalize it, and instantly you've got friends.
Would you say, or would you have anything to share when it comes to personalization? Like, if for someone who wants to do it but doesn't know how, what would you say?
Well, as I said, people are just nosy. So and I know people say, oh no, I'm not like that. It's like, yes, we are. We're all nosy. We all, I mean, that's what draws us to the tabloids, right? I mean, I mean, look, do you and I know Taylor Swift? I don't. You might, but I don't know her. Yet, if you put something about Taylor Swift in the newspaper, I'm going to read it, or at least I'm going to read the lead anyway. You know, her boyfriend, her engagement, her ring is like, really? So that is that element of us that we're just nosy. So when you're talking to people, I always say to individuals, I say, look, you don't want to give away your whole life story and all your innermost personal things. People, as much as they really want to know that, they don't need to know it, but they're just curious about you. They just want something to attach to. They want something to relate to. They want to be able to say, you know, you're in a work environment. It's sort of that little bit, the boss, you, and there's that middle ground. So the boss is the boss and I'm the worker bee, but what connects us? And then that's that little personal piece. And that might be, hey, what did you do on the, what's your hobby? What do you do on the weekends? What are you reading? What are you watching on TV? What do what's streaming that's caught your attention? Those little bits of things become that personal stuff that is not so personal, but it connects, and it's like, oh, they're just like me. They watch TV. Oh, they use this hair product. I think that, and I actually say that because I did have a wonderful interaction with Kevin Roberts, and he was with Saatchi & Saatchi for a very long time. Then with Me Too and stuff, he got disgraced. But he used to always share his story about shampoo. And the personal thing. Well, the thing was, and he loved Head and Shoulders. Kevin Roberts had no hair, but he would constantly share that story because it was a connector. It was kind of funny. And B, it was, he could use any shampoo. The guy used Head and Shoulders. He had no hair. So he didn't need any shampoo. So it was just creating that connection. And in his case with that, it was partly the brand, partly things that you could then relate to the brand, because you think about, well, what do you love your shampoo, right? Is it the smell? Is it the texture? Is it the container? Yeah. And it was all of that. And I said, man, suddenly it humanized him. And I think that becomes really important, is humanizing ourselves so that we can connect and we can break through that exterior that someone has to get that moment where they are completely concentrating on what we're saying and they're going, he's talking to me. And I think that's really important when we start talking about those universal elements.
Yeah, very, very well said. And I also think what you said about personalization, like, we always try to bring that element in a conversation, in a speech, or in anything that we're delivering. And I think when it comes to that, we always love talking about ourselves, right?
Oh, man. Don't we? We just, and I think because it comes easy and everything about you. So it's easy to talk about yourself. The hard part is dialing it back. So you're only saying so much and you're not then dominating.
Yes, that's right. Yes, very, very well said. So that brings me to my next question. You spoke about Nightline. So how did hosting Nightline shape your view on cross-cultural communication?
Nightline was 2 hours of interview and call-in. So it was broken into two parts. First part of the show was an interview part. So I would interview someone. It could be someone from the community. It could have been a doctor. We did some themes throughout the week as well. And the second hour was literally call in, and it would be a question, how's traffic affecting you? What about school fees? Things like that. The Dubai is home to so many different nationalities, so many different cultures. And it really made me realize very quickly, so one, that we all share similarities, but just in the ability to talk to different groups of people and connect to them was such a gift. And so it being on the phone, and people would call in and I would answer. It's like, welcome to the Nightline, James here. And this person, oh, James, I listen to you every night. And what I realized is suddenly when I stopped doing the show after 12 years, I would still run into people all the time. And they say, you were the guy I drove home with every night. You were the guy. Do you remember this show? I stopped in my driveway. I didn't go in, and my daughter, she now does this. My daughter introduced me to your show, and so it really made me realize that as much as in different cultures we put up walls to keep our culture and to keep ourselves, a little bit insulated. We're kind of lurk. And the UAE is no different. In fact, maybe more than many places. Yes, there's a lot of cultures, but at the end of the day, we all kind of live in our culture bubbles.
Yeah.
And part of that's just for protection of ourselves and protection of our culture, because we want to keep it, near and dear to us and reinforce it and things as we're moving through our lives. But it just made me realize, one, the power of radio and the power of audio and podcasting to really truly go into those private places, and those private places being your car, your home, your office, and your computer, which, when you think back to media theory, that was the big deal with radio when it first started, was that it broke through the barrier of privacy. So it made me realize when we were doing that again, while cultures have differences, that everybody really respects honest conversation, and people love to be listened to. And I think that for me was the big piece of all these different cultures that I had the opportunity to interact with. So whether it would be Afghanis or Iranians or Pakistanis or pick your European country, everyone just wanted to share their thoughts and their ideas, and they didn't want to be judged, and they wanted to have that opportunity to say things. And I was pretty much your standard average Canadian, so I would sit on the fence. So if someone came in with one point of view, I would just take the other point of view and say, well, hold on a second, but what about? So it wasn't a free ride to just say anything you wanted. You obviously had to be mindful, and there's restrictions on media in Dubai. But people were savvy, and people wanted to share, and they wanted someone who would listen to them and give them that opportunity and ask them some questions and drill down a little bit. But it was really just, at the end of the day, people just want to have an opportunity to talk. And I was accessible, and people liked to have the conversation. So it was okay.
As I'm listening to you, you do have the voice of someone who speaks on the radio. You actually do. Like, I'm listening and I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what I hear when I'm like listening to a radio. Someone who has your same type of voice, same pitch, the deepness of your voice. Like, it's exactly like that, and it's pleasant.
Oh, you're so kind. Thank you.
It's a pleasant voice. So yeah, this is why people came to you. So, well, at the beginning you spoke about TEDx, right? And my question is, what are some of the lessons that you got from coaching people that gave TEDx? So, and if you could give us some tips as well.
Yeah, sure. So I did TEDx and then Creative Morning. So TEDx, TED, the whole TED organization, and I will say this to everyone, if you can scrape up the money to apply to go to a TED.com conference, I think it's $12,500 admission fee now, if you can get an invite to get admitted. Everyone needs to go to a TED conference once in their life. And it totally changes the way you think about conferences, about presenting, and about when you watch TED.com videos, when you watch them live, it's a totally different thing. So not that it's not great to watch TED.com, but they're edited. And so you see parts that aren't there. And TED is not just the talks, it's the interaction of the people in the audience, because the TED audience is a curated audience at TED.com. So talking TEDx though, it's amazing how when you watch a TED Talk and you watch good TED Talks, because there are some that are only okay, but there are a lot that are really good. And when you watch a really good TED Talk, you notice that TED Talks are very formulaic. And they follow a very specific formula. In fact, read the TED 10 Commandments of Public Speaking, and that's what you have to do. I mean, so I'm always surprised when I go to a TEDx and I'll sit with people and I'll say, okay, well, you know the rules, right? And they're looking at me, it's like, what do you mean? It's like, first of all, TED is the ultimate story, and you are the ultimate part of the story. You're telling your story in a TEDx thing. You're not just giving us information. Mm-hmm. It has to be information that somehow is connected to you. Like you have to be there, and there has to be a start, and there has to be an end, and there needs to be 3 parts in the middle with examples that link together, and it is just the classic formula. And I'm always surprised that people don't get that, or that they don't hear it. And I said, you only have to watch like not too many of them to really see the formula unfolding and happening over and over and over again. And so I think as soon as people realize that, and realize that less is more in a TED Talk, and really, I keep referring to TED Talks, but my whole life has become a TED Talk. So if I'm presenting an academic paper, it's a TED Talk. If I'm doing a lecture in a class, I break it into 12 to 15 minute segments because each segment is a TED Talk. Mm-hmm. And if you just run your whole life like that, it becomes really easy because you start to realize, well, why do people love really good TED Talks? Mm-hmm. And that, and that's why, because they're personal, they're telling a story, they're things you can connect to, and they follow this formula that takes you on this journey so that it has a natural conclusion that gets you to where you want to be. Kind of like a television show. It really just follows that. And so I'm always surprised when people don't realize that. And as soon as you kind of clue them in and say, okay, well, let's break down what you're saying into these parts, and let's get rid of this and get rid of that. Go with this. Now and then, so you've got the formula, but then it's okay. Do you really, because essentially you're talking about stuff you know, do you need notes? No, you don't need notes. A great TED Talk never has notes. And B, how much practice have you done? Because if you haven't practiced the life out of your talk, and people always say, oh, but when I practice, it gets boring and it starts to feel, I said, then that means you need to practice more until your talk feels and sounds just like it's happening. But it's not just happening because you've practiced and practiced and practiced to the point that it's not memorized, you just know it. And if something happens, you can pivot and duck and then get back on track. And I think that a classic example of that is the talk by Malcolm Gladwell, and it's called, I think, On Spaghetti Sauce. Look it up. Malcolm Gladwell on spaghetti sauce. The first 90 seconds of that talk are horrible. The worst talk you will ever listen to in your life. And I'm sure Malcolm Gladwell listens to your podcast. So I apologize, but it was horrible because he hadn't practiced it. He was making it up as he went. After about 90 seconds, the talk becomes brilliant because that's the talk that he's practiced. He knew, he had all the things putting together. He had the cadence there. The classic part at the start of his talk was and I'm just going, oh my goodness, please kill me now. This is horrible. 90 seconds in, they're gone. There's no more ums. It literally went because that was his talk that he'd practiced and practiced, and he had the delivery, and he knew what he wanted to do, and he had the stories, and he was relating the whole story about the spaghetti sauce, which is not about spaghetti sauce. It's about Howard Moskowitz, and it's about psychology and understanding why people choose products. Mm-hmm. The whole story is his interaction with Howard and Howard's interaction with his research. Brilliant. It's brilliant.
So you basically shared some tips on this is what you have to do once you're delivering at TEDx. But as my last question for you, this is my question, is how do we get to that point? Because I like to see myself as an aspiring TEDx speaker eventually. Sure. And I just find it extremely difficult just to get that yes. And now I know that there is like an organization, like a local organization that it's looking for speakers, and I'm going to apply. But to get to that yes, it's pretty challenging.
It is hard. I mean, it's hard to get these organizations with TED and TEDx's. There's a lot of TEDx's, but it's hard to get to the point where they're going to invite you, where they're going to say yes. My advice to anyone is look to speak as much as you can. Doing what you're doing now with a podcast, excellent way to get yourself into that area. Look for any and every opportunity to be able to speak. And if that someone just says, hey, we're doing something that says, hey, I'd love to, push yourself a little bit on them. Hey, if you need a speaker, I'm here. I'm willing to talk about, Toastmasters. I'm willing to talk about finance. I'm willing to talk about university. I'm willing to talk about innovation. Whatever it is that you love, podcasting, and how it connects to something. Look at the connections, because I always say that they might have a very specific theme. Things we do can always fit everything. You just have to figure the angle, and then it's all the same stories, all the same stuff, just tilted a little bit. So I always say that you just have to get out there and do it. And podcasting is a great way to start, because it helps build your confidence. It helps build your speed. It helps build your cadence. It helps build your organization. And people can then look at it, because that, to me, as someone who would be looking for speakers, whether it be for Creative Mornings or TEDx, I would then go online and look to see, can I hear them speaking? Can I see them speaking? Because just because you have a good story does not mean you're going to be a good speaker. And that was always the thing with radio, is like, yeah, there's some great people out there. They're horrible speakers. They're horrible presenters. I can't put them on the radio because it'll just implode and I'll have to do all the work. So if you're looking to be a TEDx speaker or a TED speaker, well, that would be amazing, wouldn't it? But if you're looking to be a TEDx speaker, you need to have examples for people to look at, and you need to practice and practice and practice and practice. And the more you practice and the more you're out there, then you become a no-brainer, because people want people who are going to speak who've got something to offer and that people will want to listen to. That becomes really important.
Good. I guess I'm doing the right thing then, at this point. Well, James, thank you so much for coming today. Before I let you go, do you want to tell us how people can connect with you?
You can find me on Instagram at The James Casts, and as well on YouTube, same place, at The James Casts. And if you're looking at LinkedIn, it's James, and my last name is Piecowye, Piecowye. You can find me there as well. That's where I live, online.
Super. Well, I will definitely make sure to put all the information in the description below. And James, thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you very much. Have a great week.
Thank you.
Bye.